Well, I think the well-documented problems with the subway have reached north of the border up here in Toronto. I was at the Genius Channel panel sometime back in the summer, so I actually heard what Governor Cuomo had to say about the current challenges facing the New York subway, with decreasing reliability, with problems with signal failures, with train door problems. But I think more strategically than that, the reason I described it like that are on a larger scale, they're the same sort of problems that face Toronto: aging infrastructure, carrying ever more people on limited funding. But obviously that challenge is exponentially bigger in New York. So that, plus a perceived need, certainly on my part, to shake up the organization, I think those are the real big challenges. That's why I said I think it's the toughest job in transit right now. Lots of criticism of New York doesn't faze me. I like a challenge. I can't wait to get stuck in. Well, I think a number of challenges. Actually, I might answer that in a couple of ways. I think, firstly, managing expectations. If people get the impression, oh, we've got a new guy coming in and he's going to be able to fix everything just like that, well, I'll have to manage those expectations. These are deep-seated problems for which I think that the right solution applied. The subway action plan definitely contains the right measures, but it will take time to turn the situation around. You can't overnight fix issues of underinvestment. You can't overnight add capacity. So I think management of expectations is going to be a challenge. I think migrating my way through the politics of New York will be a challenge, but then it's the same everywhere I've worked: Sydney and London, and now here in Toronto. And I think also working with my new colleagues at New York City Transit to change and modernize the culture will be a challenge. That's, in many ways, is always the hardest part, but it's a bit of a signature policy of mine. It's something I need to do. It, I think, is what nailed the interview for me, that I'm a change agent, that I'm coming in with a fresh pair of eyes, and I'm going to shake things up. Obviously need to get there in order to do my due diligence and to see what works, what doesn't work. But I think New York City Transit is, again, not unique in the world of what you might call legacy systems. It's been there a long time. It does a great job. Against the odds, millions, 5 point something million customers a day are moved by the New York subway. So I think that it's or New York City Transit. So it's already doing a Herculean job. But what you tend to find in legacy systems is that there's a very traditional way of doing things. There's silos in big organizations. People have the mindset, oh, we've always done it that way. So I'll say no more until I actually get there. Obviously, I don't want to come in with predetermined ideas, but certainly a challenge I faced in Toronto was just getting people to think in a new perspective, a can-do approach, a more dynamic, lean, proactive way of doing things. For example, proactively maintaining equipment, not reactively. I'd certainly like to move to fix before failure rather than fix on failure. I think job one is to, and I've already started this, to really get to know the system, to get to know what works, what doesn't work, and to hit the ground running. So certainly I'm doing my homework at the moment. I'm not starting from scratch. I have been to New York many times. I was in there just last week, and the beginning of this week, and I rode the subway. My journey, I should say, went completely flawlessly. I had no problems whatsoever. But to get then, I arrive to very come up to speed with the current issues. I've already got loads of homework to do, which I'm plowing my way through. But then initially to focus on getting the basics right, driving up punctuality, reliability, customer service, cleanliness, and above all, making sure that we keep riders and employees safe. We're really giving our buses now more time on hoists so that we can keep them on the road longer, ultimately, which sounds counterintuitive. But if you've got a bus fleet with a very low mean distance between failure, for example, it's kind of irrelevant how many buses you put out in the morning if half of them break down. So you do need to give your mechanics time to fix things properly. And that lesson also applies to the subway. I would like to take a very, very early look at how we're going about maintaining things to make sure that we can move from a reactive firefighting perspective to a proactive perspective or proactive approach, where you get ahead of problems and you're on top of maintenance issues, and so it becomes less of a reactive approach. And I think the other thing is truly understanding root cause, and this is where already I think the subway action plan is is adding value. My job when I get there will be to assist my new colleagues in prosecuting that plan, and certainly focusing on door issues, traction issues, track circuit failures, signal failures, and understanding the root causes of those and tackling them on a Pareto basis, such that you tackle the biggest the areas that will give you biggest bang for your buck first. That's definitely going to be a priority of mine. Can't do everything at once, but what you can do is get stuck into those things that cause the most impact. Again, I think I've got to manage people's expectations there. I'm not going to set an unrealistic timeline. I'm not going to say that everything will be perfect after a defined period. I would be irresponsible and foolish to do that before I've even got there. But what I can say is my absolute focus will be on continuous improvement and exponential improvement over a period of time. Certainly, I would expect to be able to deliver tangible results after around a year, but that's not to say it's the best thing since sliced bread, and it certainly won't be all completely fixed by then. But what I would be aiming to do is be able to show that it's demonstrably better than the period during which the governor felt compelled to declare a state of emergency. I'm not saying that, just for clarity, I'm not saying everything will be fixed within a year, but certainly I believe that within a year, customers should notice an improvement. Now, I'm not going to quantify that because I need to get there first to look at what can be done and then associate that with a time frame. But certainly, because I'm not starting from scratch, because the subway action plan is already underway and it contains the types of things that I would have recommended anyway, I do believe that within a year, customers will notice that things are beginning to get better and are in fact better than they were back in the dark days of the summer of 2017. Well, I'm certainly not coming there to hold the fort. I'm not coming there to just mark time or to to just sit in the office and pontificate. My job is it's quite clear what the governor and what the MTA have brought me in to do. They want to see results. I know what I'm stepping into. I'm not phased by that, but equally I don't take it lightly either. It's clear that this is a huge challenge. Back to your original question, this will be the biggest challenge of my professional career. But I know enough about the MTA and New York City Transit to know that there's really good people there. There's a few colleagues that I'll be working with who are truly passionate about what they do, who want to succeed, who want to do better. And I think I can tap into that to galvanize everyone, to get everyone rallying around a common vision, to get that subway action plan delivered and improvements on the bus network. Again, managing people's expectations. It won't be perfect after a year, but my aim is that it will be definitely demonstrably better. Because any transit official, any transit professional worth their salt, always should aspire to reach the top of their profession. And to me, perhaps only Tokyo or Hong Kong, London would come anywhere close. But for me, the holy grail is New York City. I love the city. I've always been in love with the place. I went there on my honeymoon actually back in 1994. Been there lots of times since. So my wife and I are super excited about living there. But for me, as a transit professional, what could be bigger and better than New York? The New York City transit job is one that I've aspired to literally for years, and I'm still pinching myself that I've got it. I do not intend to let New Yorkers down.